We need to kind of take another look at some of the things we teach in our faith. Not so much that I'm calling people to change what we teach by any stretch of the imagination, but we need to have a deeper understanding of what it is we believe. You may realize that I have a lot of disagreements with some of the major teaching you see. You probably hear it all from me all the time, especially these online influencers. But I'm going to talk to you really a couple things. I'm going to talk to you about how we need to change our teaching, or we need to talk to people about other things. And the other thing is we've got to talk to people about other things. And the other thing is, I guess we do. The other thing is the second half of the program is the beginning of another interview series. We're going to talk about something the Dominicans are doing in Washington, D.C. On September 27th, they're having a special celebration of the Rosary, and you are invited. I guess they had thousands of people last year, and they're looking for same group this year and more. So we'll talk about that in the second half of the program. We're going to be talking about that over the next several days as well. But here's one of the things I want to ask. We have seen the program or the reality of what happened in Minnesota, and now we're learning more of the alleged shooter. And the thing that really bothers me, and I don't understand it, is at what point did people not come to an understanding that something is wrong? Now, of course, I don't know the daily life of the shooter, but the reason why I have to say this is, there are certain things you need to look at. We all, if we're going to live our faith and ask the question, what are we doing wrong here? Now, let me give you an example. You've probably seen these programs, and I guess the most famous, which ended up disastrously, was the program To Catch a Predator. And I'd be sitting there watching that show saying, how does this happen? Now, by that I mean, you realize that when someone, if you don't know what the show is, it's someone who tries to set up a sexual encounter with an underage child. And the first one caught, by the way, was a rabbi. They caught several teachers in this program. They even caught an assistant district attorney, and that ended the program because, unfortunately, the man committed suicide. But all of them were in chat rooms. All of these little dates started up in chat rooms. And I guess the question I have to say is, how did, people end up in that spot in the first place? I'm not talking about the decoys. I'm talking about how, you ended up in a chat room and you started talking about things that were completely over the line, and you have to ask the question, at what point did you not realize something was wrong? At what point? One of the things I always ask, you'll have like some 50-year-old guy or 60-year-old guy, and he sets up some kind of a date with someone who's 15. And I keep looking at that saying, what makes these people think that a 15-year-old would want to meet with them? Because that's what it's not doing it for money. It's all, where is this thinking coming from? And at what point do they not realize that what they're doing is wrong? And if they do realize what they're doing is wrong long before this encounter happens, they go, whoa. Then at what point do they not realize, especially from a Catholic perspective, that it's time to get to confession and say, if I continue walking down this path, I end up in a disaster? And the same thing with this alleged shooter who is now deceased. It's at what point did he not realize that he was in a lot of trouble? Now, I'm not talking legal trouble because that didn't happen yet, but a lot of psychological or mental health problem, and maybe he never did. But what about his parents? I don't know. But this is one of the reasons why our faith is so important. This is why I get frustrated when you've got people who are arguing left and right over some stupid thing of whether it's a sin or not. Whatever. I don't know if these people should receive communion. They missed Mass last week. And I understand the sinfulness of missing Mass and everything. But I'm looking at this going, yeah, and while you're arguing over this point, no one realized that there is something really dangerous going on down the street or whatever the case may be. And no one can turn around and say, there is a problem here. I don't know. I don't know the whole story, but you understand, I think we have to redefine how we want to talk about sin and let people know there are certain things that are sinful that are just plain that lead into disastrous area, and they come with warning signs. And when you see the warning signs that are long before the disaster happens, I mean, I'm not talking you're on your way to do something disastrous. I'm talking long before this. Like for example, okay, we'll go back to Catch a Predator. Well, long before any person ended up on NBC News, they ended up in a chat room saying things that they shouldn't be saying. And that's a warning sign. And if they caught that and said, ooh, I did something I shouldn't do, and maybe even went to confession and said, I promise not to do that again, and took steps to make sure it doesn't happen again, then these disasters wouldn't have happened. But obviously, there's a line that's crossed and no one cares. And I think that's something we need to look at when we come to talk about sin, but we need to look at that when we talk about faith, because everyone focuses on faith is all about sin. No, faith is all about loving God. So at what point are you realizing, oh, if I am a Catholic, then I don't belong in this spot? And at what point do you realize, well, if I walk down this path, then I'm not a Catholic anymore? And do you really care? I think these are some serious questions that need to be asked, but there are warning signs all the way. It's one of the things I teach when I talk to some people about some sins. I mean, obviously, they're not that serious compared to, the school shooter or the Predators on To Catch a Predator, which is no longer might be on reruns, but it's no longer on TV. Otherwise, no original shows. One of the things that I'll tell someone, and this is like a sin nowhere near any of that, but they're engaged in a sin, and I'll say, if you look, there are certain steps you have to make in order to commit that sin. If you don't commit one, or if you don't do one of those steps, then you're not going to commit the sin. I'll give you a great example. I don't think I've ever heard this as a confession, but this will give you an example. Someone who goes with a prostitute. Well, in order to do that, you have to go to where the prostitute is. You have to choose to find the prostitute. You have to choose to make a deal. Maybe you have to work out some kind of a hotel room or something like that. And so if you don't do any one of those steps, the sin is not going to happen. And so I always tell people that. It says, there are certain steps you have to make. You don't do one, ain't going to happen. And each one of those steps is a warning sign. Don't walk down that path. I'm a really big fan of H.P. Lovecraft. And H.P. Lovecraft, really, if you read all his stories, all of them are based, or pretty much most of them are based in one simple idea. Don't walk down that path. So there are warning signs there, tons of warning signs. And people, I don't know whether they don't heed them, or they say, oh, no, I'm not going to do that, or I don't know. But it's something to look at. As people of faith, that's one of the powers of confession, that someone confesses their sins and realizes there is a warning sign that someone crossed, and therefore, if they make a promise they won't cross that line again, they won't end up in a disastrous area. Do you understand that? These are some serious things that were, so somewhere along the line, someone clearly saw the warning signs of the shooter, clearly understood the shooter was walking down a dangerous path, and no one stopped her or him, or however we want to refer to the person, and say, you need to stop whatever it is you're doing. And I've seen that situation before on a medical way. I used to have a drinking problem, and one day I had it was over one day, but I got a severe infection, cellulitis. And I had to go in and get a boil lanced. And the doctor looked at me, he says, I don't know what you're doing, but whatever you're doing, you better stop. Cellulitis can be very serious. You can lose a limb with cellulitis. And of course, I can tell you what I was doing. I was drinking like a fish. I mean, drinking. And it was wreaking havoc with my body. And, not so much the drinking, but it was lowering the immune system and everything else. And he says, I don't know what you're doing, but whatever it is, you better stop. And that was a big warning sign for me. Do you understand? But there was a warning. There were tons of warning signs there, and it seems that what was missing is saying there's a warning sign there. And it's not so much if we don't stop this guy, he's going to, or this person, whatever, is going to become a school shooter. It's like there's a problem here, and somewhere along the line, someone needs to step in and at least do some kind of intervention. And it didn't happen. And that's part of what our faith is all about. That whole understanding that, people say, well, this is a sign that evil exists. Well, evil exists. The greatest line, evil exists because people do nothing. And yeah, evil happened, but there were warning signs and they weren't heeded. So be aware of that. But in your own life, too, be aware of that. And that's one of the most powerful things that is important about confession. I'm sorry, it's another day. I did not talk about the first reading. We'll get back to that tomorrow. But in the meantime, let us look at what's on the other side of the break, which is a great interview about a special event celebrating the Rosary run by the Dominicans. And I think you'll enjoy this particular interview because, as I say in the interview, I could talk to Dominicans for hours and hours and hours, and you would enjoy the show. We'll be right back right after this. You can now leave a message for us, which we can air and discuss on this program. Just call 617-297-7452. That's 617-297-7452. 617-297-7452. Feel free to call, leave a comment, a question, or even feedback, and we may play it on the air. I can discuss your comment or question as well, so give that a try. 617-297-7452, 617-297-7452. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Check us out. Check what we have to offer. Previews of upcoming podcasts. Previews of upcoming columns over at catholicaudiomedia.substack.com. Your ability to comment, make suggestions, even make suggestions in upcoming programs. Check us out. Patreon.com, Catholic Audio Media. We're back, and we're going to switch over our interview on rosarypilgrimage.org. Look that up. Give you all the information. We're going to be talking to a Father Andrew Hofer, who is Dominican, and over the next few days, and he is going to talk to us about this pilgrimage. Let's do it now. I always begin, which I'm doing right now, is asking a simple question. Tell us a little bit about yourself, but I also going to add to it, in your case, tell us about the Dominicans.
So my name is Father Andrew Hofer, and I'm a Dominican friar of the Eastern Province of St. Joseph. The Eastern Province of Dominicans stretches from New England down to Virginia and over to Ohio and Kentucky. I'm based in Washington, D.C. I live at St. Dominic Priory, where I'm the student master of our deacons in the province of St. Joseph, and I teach at the Dominican House of Studies here in Washington, D.C. So we have two priories here in Washington. And the Dominicans are the order of preachers, so we have a charism of preaching the gospel and the salvation of souls. And so I'm very happy to be a Dominican friar. I received the habit 30 years ago, and I was ordained a priest in 2002. So 8 years after I received the habit. 7 years after I received the habit.
Oh, and like, okay, I'm a diocesan priest, so most diocesan priests, I was the lay vocation, but most diocesan priests get ordained around 25. So how old were you when you were ordained?
I was ordained at the age of 29.
Oh, okay. All right. And so you've been a Dominican for 30 years or a priest for 30 years or both?
Yeah, so I've been in the order for 30 years, and then I've been ordained a priest since 2002, so 23 years.
The minute I ask that question, I'm horrendous in math. The minute I ask that question, I'm like, it's 2025. You're ordained in 2002. No way he could be a priest for 30 years. So I apologize
That's
for
fine.
that.
That's fine.
And I'm a United States Navy veteran. I used to protect your freedoms. So tell us about, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions from what you just told me, but I want to first ask, tell us about the Dominicans.
Okay, so St. Dominic founded our order, and it was approved by Pope Honorius in 1216. So we've been around for over 800 years, and St. Dominic founded this order that includes the friars, we have contemplative nuns, we have active sisters, and we have Dominican laity. So various peoples in the church participate in St. Dominic's charism. And we have many saints throughout church history. So we have 3 doctors of the church, St. Albert the Great, St. Thomas Aquinas, the common doctor, and St. Catherine of Siena. So we're blessed with over 800 years of holiness, and we're found throughout the order, throughout the world. And here in the United States, we have 4 provinces of Dominican friars. And I belong to this eastern province of St. Joseph.
Oh, you said New England, so does that include, were you at Providence College?
So I never was assigned to Providence College. I was assigned for a time to St. Pius V Parish, which is across the street from Providence College.
Okay. And, you know, I had a little bit, I wouldn't necessarily call it an argument, with one of your members of your order who loves to use X. And I usually don't argue on X, and it wasn't really an argument, but I always thought Dominicans always did academic work. I never knew they did parish work.
Yes, that's right. So we have several parishes in this eastern province, St. Joseph, and other provinces have parishes. I've been talking with a friar from Hamburg, Germany, and he was telling me this week about the Dominican parish in Hamburg. So,
wow.
So you have parishes in Europe, parishes throughout the world that are run by Dominicans.
Now, I was at one parish that, again, I suppose I could say it was run by Dominicans, but it was run by Dominicans about 500 years ago. That was in Peru, Lima, Peru.
Oh, yes. Yes. So Lima, Peru has 3 Dominican saints. So we have St. Rose of Lima, St. Martin de Porres, and St. Juan Macias.
Wow. Now, I've seen the bones of St. Rose and St. Martin de Porres there in Lima.
Good.
I didn't realize that they were both Dominicans.
Yes, and they lived there in Lima at the same time, along with St. Juan Macias. We had 2 large Dominican priories in Lima, and St. Martin de Porres and St. Juan Macias were both cooperator brothers, or they were non-ordained Dominican. And then St.
Wow.
Rose of Lima was within the third order system of the Dominicans.
My favorite quote by St. Rose of Lima, and I learned that when I was at St. Rose of Lima Parish in Chelsea, Massachusetts, is I probably don't have it exactly right, if people knew how much their difficulties led them closer to God, they would ask for more of them.
Yes. Yep.
Agreed. And that's I actually said that on CNN too.
Good. And
so,
where the difficulty is precisely a share on the cross. So that her emphasis is on the grace of Christ, and Christ was crucified for us. And so if we have difficulties without the cross of Christ, then they're in vain. But if we as Christians accept the difficulties and actually want to be united to Christ who is crucified for us, then we will see how Christ loves us in the midst of our difficulties and how our difficulties can be a way of carrying the cross. Because Jesus says to his disciples, pick up your cross and follow me.
Let me just touch on that because, I'll say another part. I'm talking to a Dominican. We could go on for hours on anything. That I do know. So now I forgot where I was going with that. There are so many people would say, but why wouldn't it be that Jesus' crucifixion was the cross enough for everybody?
So the cross of Christ is precisely the cross enough for everybody. That the only way that anybody goes to heaven is through the cross of Christ. And then to be able to see how that cross of Christ is shared with us. Because if we take Jesus' word seriously, he says, pick up your cross and follow me. And so then to think more about the significance of the share of the cross. So I think that is extremely important, and how, particularly in the baptismal life, because in baptism we are to be immersed in the life of Christ, and then to think about that sharing. And so St. Paul talks about this in the letter to the Colossians, about how he's filling up what is lacking in the sufferings of Christ for the sake of his body, the church. And that there's nothing objectively lacking to Christ. It's just that it's our participation. So you think about the sacramental life, that we need to do things. We need to receive what Christ is giving us. And so you think about the sacraments, you think about a prayer of the totality of life and how it's all joined together in Christ.
Wow. Okay. Now, I like I said, I could talk for hours with the Dominican. I knew that would be an issue because you guys do tremendous amount of study. This is exactly why St. Dominic started the order, and you're very good at that. Now, but we have to talk about the Rosary March. I don't know if I said that right. This is fascinating. This is your third year. I didn't know about it before. So September 27th, you're going to have a Rosary pilgrimage, I guess, in a sense. That's right. In Washington, and I imagine the focus will be at the Basilica.
That's correct. So on Saturday, September 27th, all are invited to the Dominican Rosary pilgrimage at the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception here in Washington, D.C. And so the upper church of the National Shrine holds thousands. And so we do get thousands now for this event. Father Austin Lickey is the principal preacher, and he'll preach 2 conferences through the day. And, of course, we'll pray the Rosary, and we'll have other kinds of prayer. And then in the evening, we'll have a Mass celebrated by Father Joseph Anthony Kress, who's the director of the Rosary Confraternity, and I will be the homilist for that Saturday evening Mass.
And I have to say this. I have to throw this in. I didn't even know about it. And you're going to have the Hillbilly Dominicans or something like that?
Yeah, so the Hillbilly Thomists, which is a band of friars here in the province. They'll be performing that evening, and there'll be lots of fun. And then also we'll have Father Jose Maria Guzman Dominguez, who will be preaching in Spanish to those who would like to hear the Spanish conferences, and that will be down in the crypt of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception. So it'll be a full day, for a great day for a pilgrimage.
And it sounds the basilica itself is an attraction in itself. Attraction isn't the right word, but I'm trying to think of the right word. Yeah. And if I'm not wrong, the Dominican House of Studies is right across the street.
That's correct. Yeah. So the Dominican House of Studies is a very large priory. It also has an ecclesiastical faculty called the Pontifical Faculty of the Immaculate Conception. Okay. And so I teach on that pontifical faculty. And the House of Studies Priory has a very beautiful chapel. And we have the regular business hours where people are welcome to come and pray in our chapel.
Oh, and I didn't know that.
Yes. So we get various visitors who come to pray in the chapel. It has, I think, 120 choir stalls. It has a rosary altar that depicts the traditional 15 mysteries of the Rosary carved into it. And then way up high is a depiction of Our Lady of the Rosary and Child giving St. Dominic the Rosary. And they're surrounded by the Dominican saints and blesseds in heaven. So it's a very beautiful chapel, and that's just right across the street and a little bit to the side from the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception.
We're going to be back with Father Andrew Hofer tomorrow. In the meantime, we're here every single day. You can check us out on your favorite podcast platform. And check out that rosarypilgrimage.org. And it's going to be on September 27th. I don't know if I'm going to be there. The problem is not getting there. It's getting back. But it looks like a great experience. And we'll talk more about it tomorrow. Have a blessed day. You can now leave a message for us, which we can air and discuss on this program. Just call 617-297-7452. That's 617-297-7452. 617-297-7452. Feel free to call, leave a comment, a question, or even feedback, and we may play it on the air. I can discuss your comment or question as well, so give that a try. 617-297-7452, 617-297-7452. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Check us out. Check what we have to offer. Previews of upcoming podcasts. Previews of upcoming columns over at catholicaudiomedia.substack.com. Your ability to comment, make suggestions, even make suggestions in upcoming programs. Check us out. Patreon.com, Catholic Audio Media.